Welcome to the ESCOM podcast. This is our security and compliance podcast created by Core to Cloud. I'm Kelly and I work at the marketing department.
And I'm Phil from the technical team, and we're going to take you through all our technology in a really interesting way.
Phil talks technical, while I keep it light-hearted with a selection of exciting guest speakers. Let's delve in.
So thanks for listening to the podcast today. Today we're talking about the importance of protecting your entire IT ecosystem and what that actually means. CyCognito shows you your entire attack service, including previously unknown assets across your entire network, both internally and externally. And most security teams look at security from the inside out. But again, in this episode, we discuss why it's really important to view your security as an attacker from an external perspective and only looking for those exploitable footholds. So we've got Rob from CyCognito. So Rob, I don't know if you want to just introduce yourself and maybe just tell us a little bit about CyCognito, why it's different and why it's so important to this part of the market.
Sure, thanks Phil. Rob Thatcher, I've been at CyCognito now for just over 2 months, joining to work and develop our channel program. And I think as an intro, what interests me about joining CyCognito is the gap in the market space to look at the external risk from an attacker's point of view. The background to CyCognito and the business is that we were started by an organisation that basically did reconnaissance, nation-state reconnaissance services, discovering the attack surface of organisations out there, which is the foundation block, I guess, to most security. If you look at visibility in cybersecurity, I think it's in everybody's marketing collateral. If you can't see the assets that you're trying to protect, then you're going to struggle. So I guess that was the background of and the foundation block of CyCognito is discovery of assets, and then from there you can look at how you can protect those in a better way.
That's really interesting. Obviously, I know we've spoken to quite a few customers about this, and people know that they've got their own external firewall, but they may not know what the vulnerabilities are in it. But a lot of the external assets, they've not even considered them, have they? There's lots of things that you guys throw up, and people don't even know they've got it, do they?
Yeah, I think an interesting thing is that only last week I was on a call with a customer looking at how they manage their the foundation, as I say, block of discovery, how they manage their external assets. And they currently get a consultant in once a year that does a report of their external assets. So a bit like a car MOT or any of those analogies. And The day after that, if someone in that organization creates a cloud asset that's exposed to the internet, that is exposed for the rest of the year until the next audit's done. So what that does to the risk of a customer, they might have the right security tools, in place to protect that asset. But if it's not known, then they can't deploy the security tools that they've already paid for. They can't deploy those on the assets if they don't know them. And if, as an example, we see on our customer base a monthly churn, monthly change of between 1.5% and 2.5% asset change. So over a course of a year, or what the frequency is of you discovering those assets, obviously gives you the drift of visibility, and that creates the gap in your security. And as our CEO Rob always talks about, attackers look for the path of least resistance. They don't look for the challenges. They look for the ground floor door that's left open that you don't know about, rather than the 7th floor window that's slightly left ajar. They're not even interested in that. They go through the ground floor door if you don't know it's there. So that's what we look to identify.
Yeah, because as you're saying, even if you've got new kind of assets being added through the time, you've also got new risks appearing through that time as well, haven't you? So there's that constant changing between assets changing and new risks appearing. And you guys give basically a live dashboard, don't you, of all those issues so people can just see what they are and start remediating them.
Yeah, so we talk through customers' existing processes because everybody does something now, yes. Everybody tries to do this to one degree or another. So the key thing for us to understand is how do people currently do this? What do they currently do? How do they track their assets on a spreadsheet? How do they do it? And then based on those assets, what frequency do they test it? And then based on the test and the results of the test, how do they prioritize that? And when we talk through that and we help customers identify, what it is that their current processes achieve and how that could be optimized to reduce risk further. Once we've done that, obviously, then we can start to talk about how we automate that, because we do that all within the platform, either weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. And for most customers, that is a task that is manually very hard to do, if not impossible.
Yeah, and I know when you're talking about sort of prioritization, one of the things that I really liked about the platform was it does prioritize things by the attractiveness of an asset to an attacker. So obviously that's a key thing, isn't it? Because as you say, they're going to go for that path of least resistance. They're not going to do the difficult thing. They're going to look for something that's unpatched or something that's open, and that's the route they're going to take, isn't it?
Yeah, and based on the testing that we do, typically we find, like many security tools, lots of security issues. So not just vulnerabilities, but security issues, expose assets that shouldn't be exposed and things like that. But the key for everybody is that I don't think anybody in the world now needs another tool to tell them that their network needs thousands of things fixed.
Yeah.
I always alluded to that if a customer can fix 5 things in a week, and we scan and we reprioritize and we publish the top issues, we need to give the customer 5 a week. The rest are if they want to work with core to cloud on patching some other pieces that aren't critical, but to bring their total volume of vulnerabilities down, then there are solutions out there and services out there they can buy to do that. But if there's 5 critical things and they can only deal with 5, we need to tell them which are the 5.
Absolutely.
There's no point telling them 10, because they might miss the one that's really important, which might be number 6.
Okay, so talking a bit about the types of things it finds. I mean, I think on the reports I've been looking at, it's found things like architectural problems, misconfiguration issues, server misconfiguration, network issues, exposed data. What's the kind of, for a standard organisation, what types of things are you sort of pulling out and showing as issues? So do you want to give us some examples?
Yeah, so I mean, you're right. I mean, we do standard vulnerability scans, which industry enterprise standard vulnerability scans, and then outside of that, we do exposed RDPs, orphaned S3 buckets.
Yeah.
Things with sort of bad encryptions, standards on it, end of life type of scenario. So anything with end of life that's exposed based on end of life. We have a report I looked at the other day. Standard username and password on an exposed to the internet IP camera. We found exposed air conditioning heating systems sort of exposed to the internet, so you could if you were so inclined access that and change some of the settings within that. So remembering that we're looking at the business risk associated with the cyber side of a business. So it's not only what is sort of like a security function, but what would be the impact to the business of that, exposure onto the internet. So remembering that we are 100% SaaS based. Yeah. So, we look from the outside in. We don't need anything delivered. We've got no technology. A customer doesn't have to change their, configurations, doesn't have to put us into their policies and listings to allow us access, because that wouldn't really very well satisfy the view of an attacker, because no attacker goes to an organization and says, for me to do my reconnaissance on your organization, could you give me some of your passwords? So it really doesn't work if we get any access to the customer piece, and we're spread across lots of different sort of like sources of our address, so we go undetected. We are a proper attacker view of your network.
Yeah, what you were saying about the exposed heating systems, I presume any of these systems that are there, they could easily be a pivot point into a more critical area of your network as well.
Yeah, and depending on what sort of business you are, a heating system might be critical, I guess. So the bit that we're working on and we're still developing is the intelligence behind the business risks associated with the assets that we discover. And that's where obviously, someone like Quarter Cloud can work on that with their customer to, interpret the results and the criticality of the assets that we find that are exposed, because that's obviously not always, visible to us as a service, an external service. And something else that we've also just released is our exploit intelligence, which enables customers to look at and refine the prioritization of the list, because depending on a certain type of organization, those exploits might not be currently used against financial services or whatever type of organization, healthcare or whatever. So we've got the intelligence about which attackers are exploiting which vulnerabilities or security issues in certain sectors. So we can use that to further hone down and go, well, this one's important, but it's not actually in your top 5 because it's currently not showing as being exploited on your type of network. The key thing is to bring down the level to the ones that are important to each individual business.
Yeah, so you know what you're going to focus on first. Again, that's always the key thing, isn't it? Is working out what you actually need to do to keep your organisation safe and making sure you're working on that first.
Yeah.
Just ask. I know that you guys do a lot of the externally scanning wise. You do a lot of the OWASP top 10, the SANS 25. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, because that's an alignment that's important to a lot of customers.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the tools that we use, under the hood of the solution, bring in, all of those things that we can test, unauthenticated. Some of those tests within those standards piece can't be done.
Yes, I realise that a lot of them can't be done externally, but some can, can't they?
Some can. So within all of that and within the dashboards, I mean, essentially, we are a big data company that feeds in many OEM tools into a database of which on the dashboard and on the GUI front end, customers can interpret that data any way they like. So all of those standards that we use within the platform, we can customers can extrapolate that out and basically consolidate down some of those things that they currently look for within different tools and use it from the data that we collect within our platform. So, we hope that using all of that information as part of that merge of interesting stuff helps customers sort of optimize, their searches for what is relevant depending on what's the priority. Like, similar to we've got a PII, dashboard within the tool. So, very quickly, if a customer wants to look at what PII assets are exposed to the internet, they can click on that, summary within the dashboard and come up with that and understand where they are and if there's any vulnerabilities against that. Because we're finding a lot of customers are using our data for, red teaming activities, penetration testing, because obviously we're an up-to-date, depending on the frequency the customer purchases, weekly, fortnightly or monthly, we're an up-to-date asset list. So rather than running your penetration testing on a asset list that's a year old or such like, they can go to the platform, pull out those assets and provide that to their testing team.
Interesting. And also, as you said about, attackers looking at the path of least resistance, I know there was a report, I think it'll be last year now, from Gartner, and they were talking about the top 10 security projects with kind of high impact. And I know we were looking at that from a CyCognito perspective. And the things that it could help with were things like securing your remote workforce, that risk-based vulnerability management, your cloud posture, that data classification, as well as automating those risk assessments. So it seems to me that this falls really at a good time, doesn't it? As people are moving to cloud more and more, they really there's a bit of a rapid move to cloud and people aren't really always putting that security in place. So almost CyCognito can be there in the background, giving you the confidence that, look, actually we are safe or we're not safe or what we need to do first. Don't you think? Because people are really moving at speed now.
Yeah, and another one of the dashboards is cloud assets. So obviously we track every cloud asset on which platform it's, which service is running on that platform. So as much of the information that we can, and whether there's a security risk there or not, obviously we don't only collect assets that have security issues against them. We collect assets regardless of what's there. So as far as a business is concerned, against some of the things we do against policy, as opposed to security. So policy and governance and compliance and the like. It's very easy for customers to set up what we call recipes, so the integrations workflows into other tools, which the customer might already run in their operations. So if, for instance, a customer has a policy that these are the 3 cloud platforms I should be operating on. Yeah. If an asset gets created that we've linked to that organization in a cloud platform that doesn't meet the policy, we can create a ticket within the report, export that out to Jira, ServiceNow, Zendesk, anything like that the customer uses, and we export all that information out and publish that, create a ticket, so the customer for that activity doesn't need to go into the CyCognito platform. Might be being owned by the security team, but the cloud ops team need to be tasked to look at who's created that instance in a cloud platform that's not in the policy. So we can export that out, send that out with all the details in it, and someone can go and check why that's been created. So it's an overall, anything that you want to know about the attack surface or your external assets can be pulled from the database and fed for many different business reasons.
Okay. I tell you, if I was listening to this, I'd be saying, this sounds amazing. I'd really want to know how my organisation's affected. What's the kind of, how easy is it to do like a POV on this? Because obviously what people want to see is, hang on, what does my organisation look like? And I realise it's a live dashboard that updates all the time, but how easy is it for us to show people what their own organisation looks like in regards to this?
Sure. So normal process that we would go through. We've got obfuscated live customer demo that we could present to a customer to make sure that it sort of meets what they believe is their needs. Then we can look at what we call an advanced demo, which does a portion of a customer's network. Normally takes us about a week to turn around doing that, and that gives a bit more business context, because rather than generic obfuscated data, it finds their organisation and subsidiaries within their organisation and things like that. So it gives them a better view, any issues that we find. And then obviously after that, we can move to a full POV if required. But we quite often find that, customers, when they understand based on the advanced demo, the level of knowledge that we get of a customer's attack surface and the value that we can bring, quite often it moves straight to, purchase of the solution and actually then operationalizing, the onboarding of that customer, which is obviously, creating the dashboards and things like that they need to run their business off of that asset database. And I think the key thing I just mentioned there as well, Phil, is that, I haven't yet seen, granted I've been here, 2.5 months or something like that. Never has it been yet that a customer has been almost close to their assets. And I think one of the key features that everybody feeds back on is our discoverability path mapping, because it's quite telling when we do even an advanced demo and we find customer says, based on how they view their network, I have 2,000 exposed assets to the internet, and then we come back and we say, well, we've discovered 4,000. The standard response, and it's not wrong necessarily. The standard response is, well, the other 2,000 aren't mine. But because of the discoverability path, when we go through those assets and we go through how we found those assets, and the routes that we did and the techniques that we used to attribute those assets to that organization, that is the key factor, the foundation, as I mentioned to start off with. That's the key foundation factor of saying, well, this is that ground floor door that's currently shut, but if for some reason a vulnerability gets exposed on that asset, And because you didn't even know that door existed in your office, if it was left open, you wouldn't know it was left open. So discovering those assets and mapping those out is obviously the critical path, and that's what most customers are extremely interested in, and that's a really easy thing for us to demo. So because, as I say, we're a 100% SaaS-based service, a customer just has to approve that we start it. We don't do advanced scans because of what we do and the business structure. We wait for a customer. We don't go and scan all customers and then start to provide reports to them and saying you need to buy it because we found issues. That's not our method of sale. We engage with customers. If they're interested in it, then they authorize it and we do a partial scan of their network.
Okay. Just kind of talking about, obviously, I've seen the reports and the kind of detail in it. What's new, what's coming, what are you guys planning in the future? Where's the product going? What's the plans for it?
We're refining down the type of information. So the OEM tools that we bring in to make sure that we test more and more security issues and not just the vulnerability piece. So that's obviously built into the tool. And as say the severity and the criticality. So we're building in some business logic into it. So customers can start to put some prioritization against assets. So maybe an asset that currently has a medium or a high, not a critical issue against it, would score lower than a critical issued asset.
Yeah.
But we're changing, or we're putting the flexibility in it for customers to tag critical assets. So in the prioritization, if there's a highly critical asset that has a high but not critical issue against it, we would rank that higher. And then the other bit that we've just releasing is the exploit intelligence. So as I say, for customers to be able to, if they want to further verify it and look at the exploit and understand who's using it and what's the probability of it being used in anger at this point in time, then that's the latest feature that we've released. And then further down the roadmap, we're looking at other sets of data that we can enrich our platform with, and then other we get quite often I don't know, mixed up is the right word, put in the same bucket of security risk rating services.
Yeah.
Which sort of like a far more rounded, far rather than specific solutions. So we're looking at whether we can help customers have a more rounded view of the data rather than a specific piece, because there are customers that want that more executive report piece, which is another element that we're creating, is the exec report rather than looking at all the technical detail.
That's quite useful because a lot of customers will want to include this in their kind of monthly IT meetings or reports to the board, won't they? So that's quite useful for them to be able to have something that's a bit more high level as well. That's good.
Yeah, and it's an area that we've recognised is we've been busy adding technological value into the solution.
Yeah.
But helping customers understand why it's good for them and how it's improved their lead time to remediation. Within their business, how it's helped them over a period of time, reduce their risk. And as I say, part of the dashboarding piece is looking at, customers that have complex, large customers with lots of subsidiaries are great, get great value out of our tool because, being able to divide down who's performing, areas, best practices within one part of the business around remediating some issues that could be moved into or copied into another part of the organisation to speed up and reduce the risk quicker. It helps businesses look at performance within the subsidiaries and repeat those good practices in other areas, which ultimately we want to bring down the exposure, the time of exposure from us discovering something to an organisation, removing it from their risk. People are looking for attack surface management and they get drawn to the things that, in our experience, our challenge is getting in front of the customer for them to consider us.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Once we're in front of the customer, almost without fail, if they want what Gartner classifies as external attack surface management, we win. But because we are CyCognito, and this isn't a bad thing, but it's a typical challenge, yes?
Yeah.
We're a cool startup bit of tech competing against Palo Alto and Microsoft. They've got a lot of account folk out there. They've got a lot of partners out there. They've got so the ask really of customers that we're trying to break is that, if you're looking at the Gartner definition into attack surface management, asset discovery, the security testing, prioritization and remediation. If you're looking for that, then we are the only tool that does that within a platform. Others don't do all of that.
So you effectively got the complete package, is what you're saying. And I know when we've put it in front of customers that have used some sort of tool already, they've all said, "Wow, this has got a whole lot more information in it."
Yeah, and it's just streamlining it. I guess it's the ability for customers to buy it as a service, as opposed to that blog that I love, by the way. Why get a human to do what a machine can do? Yes, I mean there's some things that customers have to do maybe with their resources, but if they haven't got enough resources, why don't they automate and get a solution to do stuff that takes a lot of time?
Absolutely.
That's the optimization we can bring. So, mate, I don't know whether that's worth how to put that in place, but
I think we could splice a bit of that in. I mean, we can see, they can even take a part of it. I think you're right. It's important to mention the part where you said about it's important to get them in front of the customers so they can have a look at this alongside what they're doing. At the end of the day, if somebody's doing a POV, it doesn't take a lot of effort to add another one in and do a proper comparison, and see what your product offers.
But based on it, all they got to do is say, "Could you do it for us?" They haven't got to install any kit. It's just like, okay, we're interested in this. We're currently running an evaluation of Risk IQ, Palo Alto, Microsoft, BitSite, whatever. We're currently doing this. We'd like our results from you. It's like, okay, so you've got a live project, you've got a budget associated with this, and you'd like us to run it. Okay, we can run it. Just say, get on with it, and in a week's time, we give you an advanced demo report.
Yeah, they can do a comparison and then see the value for themselves in their own environment, can't they?
So, it doesn't require them to do anything other than contact Core to Cloud and go, I'd like to see this on my network.
Absolutely.
I don't know all my assets. I'm not sure how many assets I've got. It's like, well, should you know how many assets you've got? Yeah, I most probably should. Okay. So what about, because the way we've chunked it up now, so the way that we license it, they can just buy asset scoping on its own. No security testing, no exploit intelligence. So we could just run on a weekly basis, a fortnightly basis, a monthly basis, asset discovery and give them a list of assets.
Perfect. Yeah, we can talk to them about the scope of it. No, that's really helpful. And as you say, it's really important that people consider this alongside. So that's good. Thank you for your time on this podcast. It's been really good talking to you today. And I hope people enjoy it.